week number 2, Singh Army podcast. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone, every single person that showed us all the love last week. It was our first podcast, all sorts of things going wrong, the volume, the coughing, the this, the that, and but everyone still showed us loads of love. So thank you to everyone. Like I said, it was week number 1. None of us come from media or tech backgrounds. So we are getting used to this, and we will get better very, very soon. Maybe week 25, week 26, we'll have the flawless product. But up until then, we're building and we're getting better. So this week's topic, we have the Singh Army team with us today. Baji, tell us what is this week's topic?
On the back of Valentine's Day, the topic today is true love. What is true love, and how can we build true love with Waheguru?
Okay, so there's you talked about one type of, you talked about true love and love with Waheguru. There's lots of different types of love, but before we get into all of those different types of love, let me ask another Baji here from the Singh Army. Off the cuff, let's not be so formal. Tell me something you love.
I love spending time with my friends here, my brothers here. I love my family. I love food. I love football. I love travelling.
Who do you support again?
Manchester United.
Hey. What's there to love about that?
Bro, champions.
Do you still love them now?
Honestly,
always through thick and thin.
Okay, this week is going to be on love. What is love, or different types of love? And we've got none other than the love doctor himself, Tajinder Singh. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Sorry, am I allowed to say that after that joke? I don't know. Okay, so great to have you with us. Now, we had Amandeep with us last week, who told us a moving story about how he got into Sikhi. But with yourself, you've been into Sikhi from a young age, and you want to talk about Gurbani, and you want to go deep with this week, yeah?
Yeah. So obviously, the plan is to talk about love, and we'll go through different types of love, and what love truly could mean, what it might mean, what we might understand it to mean, and then how we develop that love, I think, is going to be the key focus throughout it, is ultimately how do we develop that love with God. Because when we develop love in a worldly sense, we've got a physical person that we are developing the love with, and we will talk about how do we get that with something that seems so transparent, something that we can't see, something that we can't touch necessarily, and we can't always feel or hear. How do we develop that love with something that is so abstract? And I think we will slowly, as we go through the podcast, we will get there. We'll listen to some stories of worldly love, but ultimately, how can we build a love with the true lover, and the only true thing, which is God. Akal Purkh Waheguru.
So we're covering 2 types of love there. We've covered relationship with love, just touched upon it, not even covered it. And then we're talking about the love between, a person and God. So there are 2 different types of love.
I think the good thing with the topic love, like last week, a lot of people, the feedback that we got was gratitude was such a wicked topic to start with, because everybody feels as if there's not enough of that in their life. Do you know what I mean? And the topic of love, everybody had felt that emotion of love. Do you know what I mean?
In many different ways. You've got love between a parent and their child. You've got a love between children and their parents. You got brothers and sisters. You got love between friends. You got love, like we said, the other 2 that we've covered.
Definitely, what I mean to say is that it's a topic that all of us have got some kind of they felt it. Do you know what I mean? It's an emotion that nobody can say, I don't know what love is. I've never experienced it. Do you know what I mean? The love from mother, like you said, the family.
You know what's interesting? Taj, if you could tie that in for us, what's the difference between love and attachment?
So that's a good question, because a lot of the time the 2 can be, you'd think they're pretty much the same, because we love the people that we tend to be attached to because you have some kind of bond with them. Like, say if you see someone that you've never seen before, you ain't going to feel love to that person because you've got no attachment. So in a way, I think what we have to differentiate here is what we mean by the word love. And I'm going to come back to the question in a minute, but what I was thinking was there's a philosopher called Wittgenstein. He's a German philosopher, and he came up with this theory of language games. And basically what he talks about, it's quite a long theory, it's usual philosophy kind of stuff that you start reading it, then you get quite confused, you don't know what he's on about. But the essence of what he talks about is that when we use words, we could use a word that word could be a question, sometimes when it's used. It could be an answer to something. It can be, it can mean so many different things depending on the context. And he calls it language games. And I think when we talk about love, we've got to think about what game we're talking about within that language structure. So if we're talking about the game between a parent and a child, obviously that's a type of love, and that will form predominantly through attachment, because I'd say they both kind of come together when you have your first child. So Indy, you just had a child recently. I've got two. When you stood there and the baby's born, you automatically feel something. Now the reason why I'm saying something is not to disrespect it. It will be love, but I suppose it'd be a bit of a mix-up of attachment and love, because in that game of being a parent, you need attachment to your child, otherwise you won't protect them, but you need love because you need to bring them up in a loving way. But then I suppose when we talk about Sikhi love, it gets a little bit different, because it depends on what game you're playing within that language game. And what game do we talk about when we're talking about prem and love in Sikhi? Is Joto prem khilan ka chao sir tar tali gali mariyao. That this is a totally different game, because this prem starts off with you having to sacrifice everything. So we've all probably heard that Bhakti. It's a very famous one. Tends to be on like Baba Deep Singh pictures, that if you want to play the game of love in Sikhi, you need to come with your head on your hand. So when it comes back to Suk's question of attachment, in this game of love, you have to cut your attachment off. You've got to cut your head off and then walk on the path. Worldly love probably will come with a lot of attachment.
I like that example there, because I'll be honest, when I was a Munna and a youth, something I used to struggle with was when you read, Romanized Bhakti and stuff, where Guru Sahib's talking a lot about attachment, different kinds of more. I used to think that, and this is me being a Wardak, is Maharaj in this Bhakti talking about, I shouldn't have any love or attachment to my family, to my friends, to my spouse even. And that's why I used to get quite confused.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, you get that question a lot, saying that I can't take Umrat or I can't get into Sikhi because I love my family too much, and you're not supposed to be attached. There's a massive misconception there. Can you clear that up?
I think when it comes to Sikhi and Amrit or following the path of Sikhi, it's all about steps, isn't it? It's like, for example, if you want to learn a trade, if you want to, say I'm a school teacher now, yeah? I didn't just turn up one day and start teaching, did I? In that same way, to actually lose worldly love, lose attachment. See, I'm already getting the two confused because they are so interlinked, but to lose attachment from the world, that is a very deep step. That's like up there at PhD level. What you have to do in this path of Sikhi, you've got to take little steps. So if there's anything, whether it's because you haven't got attachment or you've got too much attachment, if there's anything that stopped us from taking a step on this path, that is Kaljug, that's Maya, that's the world trying to pull us away. We've got to step through that. Ultimately, prem, or love, as it's called in English, the word in Punjabi we use is prem. Prem, ultimately, for God, will only develop when Sadhguru Sahib Ji, when Guruji blesses you with that. What we have to do is put in some work so we can build that relationship. So I think that's quite important, is that if you've got that confusion that, I've still got some attachment, you're always going to have worldly attachment. You've just got to put some work in and take that first step.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying there, but just to further clarify it, I mean, in a way, it brings you closer. It brings you closer to God, Waheguru, Guru Sahib, in the sense of, I've just recently become a parent, and there's times with your child, there's nothing you can physically do. You can only have faith in God. You can only have faith in God, and there's nothing you can physically do. So that builds your brain with God, with Waheguru. And, we got, like what we've done this week here, sorry, I should have said at the start, is obviously we've got the rest of the team with us who are going to just be adding in their thoughts and their feelings and everything as well. And we've got Baji here with us, just on that subject of, it builds your brain for God when you do have children. And Baji's gonna just, because Baji, you went through a lot, and it was, you're gonna tell all the listeners how much you went through, and by the end of it, I'm sure everyone else will understand how it built your love for Waheguru.
Yeah, I mean, like, just a bit personally, what I went through is like, I had me and my wife were blessed with a boy, and he was born 16 weeks premature. So obviously that brings a lot of complications in itself, and just before he was born, like, you're talking a couple of days before he actually was born. The doctor's like, realistically, he's not going to make it. So even that, just to start off with, before anything's even happened, there's thoughts going through your head like, okay, why me? This can't be happening. This can't be happening. And then when it does happen, my son came, loads of complications. He's a day old. Doctors have come around. He's like, look, he's done well enough just to get to this point, but he's not going to make it through the night. Call all your family round now.
What was his weight when he was born?
He was 820 grams. So you're like, not even you get a bag of sugar. Not even a bag of sugar. But yeah, so the doctors were like, call all your family, all that sort of. Everyone's there, crying. Obviously, understandably, all emotional. But I just wanted to get myself away from that. And it's about 3:30, 4 in the morning. Went down and I said to my dad, look, I want to get out of this environment. So for me, being a Amritari, I just wanted to be in the presence of God at that time. So, Amritullah that time, I went to the Gurdwara. They've just done Maharaj Prakash. And literally, I think that's the only ever time I've actually Satche Dilon Nalo, with a pure heart, crying my eyes out, done ardas to Maharaj. Like, look, if you're gonna let me keep him, then just give me a sign. But if you're gonna take him, then take him now. Don't let him suffer. And I don't even think I've told the missus or anyone at home this. That was my ardas that day. But yeah, went back to the hospital and I had that kind of, when you're on a mission, said to the doctors, look, you lot got your job to do. I've got my job to do. My job to do as much part, as much ardas as I can. All I ask from you guys is just don't give up. And it was a long 5 months. In the hospital, various times doctors said about 5-6 times he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it. But I never broke that faith in Maharaj. Like, look, Maharaj didn't bring us like 2 months or 3 months along just to take him away now. Because that was Maharaj. Maharaj was Maharaj. If you're gonna take him now. Maharaj never took him. Maharaj left him with us, and obviously, he's 4.5 years old now, going strong.
And so, 2 questions there that I've got for you. Because you went through so much with your child, did that develop your love with your child more than a normal parent and their child?
I think so, yeah. But I'm one of those parents, like, everyone gives him that love. He gets love from everybody, even like he sees a few specialists and everything now, his doctors, his nurses, and everyone, all my friends, all my brothers, everyone give him that love, and I'm a bit like I want to be a bit hard on him as well, but underall I know that love for your kids is something different, it's you can't explain it. It's something else. You can only go through it if you have a kid.
And it's a personal question, but at any point, was it like, God, why me? Or were you just, God, thank you, I love you after everything? What was your feeling afterwards?
After, yeah, you do question, but I think my questioning of it was like, what's the reason that you gave this test to me? There must be a reason. Everyone has their own garam, as we all believe. Like, was that my garam or was that my little one's garam? I think it's a bit of both. He had to go through that suffering, which is his garam, and then we had to go through that suffering with him, all those emotions, that roller coaster of emotions. That's our garam. We got to, Maharaj is testing us. Are we going to keep the faith, or are we just going to, like, doljana? Are we going to, like, falter?
So you would say it definitely, it made you, at that time, made you closer, made you love.
100%. Made my pyar for Sikhi, like, massive, my love for Sikhi there. So that kind of, my attachment to my child, all of that made my love for Sikhi even more.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's a very moving story that Baji just shared with us there. And I think from that, sat next to Baji here, what I was feeling through all of that was oozing through it was the love of a father and that love for their child. Because ultimately, like, obviously, I've got 2 kids as well. You do automatically have what we would say is unconditional love, and you have that unconditional love. But again, just thinking about that and the love that a father has, I just wanted to bring it back a little bit to a slightly different angle, but still thinking of a father's love and thinking of Dhan Dhan Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji. Now, Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji, yes, they were God on the earth, and we all accept that. But if we just think for a minute and we talk about love on a worldly sense, Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji must have had that love for Sahibzada Baba Ajit Singh, Baba Jujar Singh, Baba Jorawar Singh, Baba Fateh Singh. That love must have been there.
Yeah, I mean, Sahibzade being their children.
Yeah, being their, biological children, and they would have had that love. But I think the great thing for us when we talk about love and Sikhi and love for the Guru is that Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji sends their 4 Sahibzade to become Shaheed. And as they leave Chamkaur Sahib the Gadi, and I'm not going to go through the whole Saki, but a lot of people would have already heard it. If not, there's lots of stuff on social media where you can catch up on
send
that.
for biological sense to be martyred in the battlefield.
To be martyred in the battlefield. And Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji is leaving the battlefield. And we've just heard Baji's story there of that love that the father has for their child. Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji is walking past Sahibzada Baba Ajit Singh's body. And Bhai Daya Singh, again, you could say through love, because Bhai Daya Singh has seen Sahibzada Baba Ajit Singh from the day he was born grow up.
The first Panj Pyara.
The first of the Panj Pyare. And he's got that love for them on, you could say, on a worldly sense as well as a Gursikh Torte. And they stop and they say to Guru Sahib Ji that this is your son. And that is one thing that the world always, the father-son relationship's been talked about from when the world began, from when people began through to now. And they said that your son is lying there on the battlefield and you're not going to at least put a chadar on him. Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji, coming to that fatherly love, gave us, as a Khalsa Panth, the same love they gave Baba Ajit Singh, because that day they said, unless you're going to cover all the Singhs, who are also my sons, then cover all of them or leave Sahibzada Baba Ajit Singh. And then when Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji leaves, they give the Khalsa Panth, us as their children, regardless of where we are on our path of Sikhi, whether we're Amritdhari, we're not. If we call ourselves the Sikhs of the Guru, and we have been in front of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji and bowed our head, whether we think it was very superficially or not, you have given your cease to the Guru. In that, you've given your head in that instance. And Guru Sahib Ji loves us. They have that love for us. What we need to do is try to give that back and develop
tell
that.
the listeners, what is it that Guru Sahib said when they were asked about their sons?
So when Guru Sahib Ji then reached Damdama Sahib, so this is going on a little bit after some of the battles, Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji, where at Damdama Sahib's Takht Sri Damdama Sahib, and behind the Takht Sahib's a Sarovar, and there is Mata Ji's Gurdwara, where Mata Sahib Kaur and the Mata Amma met Sri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji the first time after Anandpur Sahib, after leaving. And the Mata Amma said that, when you left Anandpur Sahib, you had your 4 children with you. The Char Sahibzade, they were with you. Where are they now? And at that point, Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji said that those 4 Sahibzade, they have, they've gone in battle, but I've got hundreds of thousands of, that I've got hundreds and thousands of other Gursikhs who are also my children. So Guru Sahib Ji has already blessed us. If we're talking about different relationships and that how love can have different dynamics in different relationships, Guru Sahib Ji has already offered us that love of a father. What we need to do is become a child. And in Gurbani, there's a pankti that comes, that basically a child commands does lots of wrong things, yeah. So as a child, like when we were all growing up, we would all done some stupid things, and then you go home. What's
the pankti?
I can't remember it now off the top of my head, but lakh aparad kamave pichhle augan bakshile. So basically that lots of we do lots of wrong things, and when we're younger, and obviously we do things, especially I used to do it a lot when I was at the Gurdwara. So Dad would take us to the Gurdwara. I was a little kid, mess about, play football outside, a window gets smashed. Someone tells my dad, you go home, you get shittar. But your parents still forgive you, don't they? Because they've got that love for you. In the same way, Guru Sahib Ji, when we were earlier on, we were saying people say, oh, I'm not ready, I'm not this, whatever else. That actually Guru Sahib Ji will always forgive us and always show us back onto that path. And the pankti is Jaisa Balak Pai, Spai Lak Aparad Kamave, Kar Upadesh Chitke Bahpati, Bahud Pita Galalave. That Guru Sahib Ji, like a child, makes lots of mistakes. And does lots of wrong things. What Guru Sahib Ji does, just exactly like a father does, they will tell you off. You'll get chirka, you might get a little clip around the ear, whatever it is, yeah, depending on that relationship. But ultimately, that the father will still take the child into his neck and give them a hug. He's not going to disown his child because they've done something wrong. And it doesn't matter how big that barb is. So Guru Sahib Ji is, if you imagine, like Guru Sahib Ji is the ocean of love and of forgiveness, because love is very closely linked to forgiveness, and I'm sure that'll be picked up on a future podcast, and the link between the two is immense. Because Guru Sahib Ji is omnibenevolent, They are all loving. They are the ultimate lover. Whatever we do, whatever part of this path we're on, Guru Sahib Ji will forgive us because they are all loving, and they will always help us.
You know, it's some powerful things you said there, like the link between forgiveness and love.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, I find that so fascinating. That's such an important link, and I suppose, you know, to forgive in life, you have to have love.
Yeah.
You know, and whether that's love for the person you're forgiving, love, because like you said, we're talking about the parent-child relationship, and you know, taking it back to a bigger scale of things. We're talking about a commercial day, a well-marketed thing here in UK. It's a commercial day, Valentine's Day, and another one is Father's Day. And everything you've just gone through, and everything that you've just told me, and the example of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, you know, that it fills a void if you haven't who haven't got a father on Father's Day, and you know, might not be able to relate on this commercial day of Father's Day, because we've gone through it, like it's a day-to-day thing. It's not necessarily about that day, but what you've done there through a Sikhi angle, you filled a void. You filled a void that people might not have, because it's a clear example, and I can't think of any other example of any other religious leader on the earth who's done that example with their children. Now I just want to bring it back round now, back to Valentine's Day and back to this commercial love. And we've got another Baji with us here today, and Baji, you know, Gurbani and different resources that we have talks about different things, and the sources that we use for this come from far and wide. It's not just our own history. We use cultural history, we use other faiths' histories to build a picture, to relate to our own whatever it is that we're trying to learn at the time. So I just want to bring you in here, Baji, and just to talk about this and talk about relationship love. How, you know, give me some examples. And
so yeah, absolutely, you're right. So Gurbani takes into account a variety of languages and literature, and I think that adds to the richness of Gurbani, what Gurbani actually is. So the words in Punjabi, we might use something like pyar, or we might use something like prem, and I should know what prem means because my son's called Prem. Sant Gurbatan Singh, exalted Sikh leader, actually translated prem into the mama meaning me and pare meaning me away from it. I think that thing that takes the I or the you out of the relationship, that thing's called prem. So in the same way, so Gurbani talks about prem, about pyar, and in the same concept in different languages, ishq, muhabbat, these words come in Gurbani a lot, and then in a more of a poetic sense, lal and rang, in a poetic sense, Guru Sahib used these as love as well. So Gurbani is full of these kind of words, and I want to use some stories put together by a great Sikh scholar called Bhai Gurdas Ji. Bhai Gurdas Ji was a Sikh of Guru Arjan Dev Ji, and they were chosen to write Guru Granth Sahib Ji. That's how much of a scholar they were. And in one kind of var, what they've done is they've written loads of things that are kind of seen to be the prequel, or a kind of a pre-understanding to some of the philosophies of Gurmat, right? So they've written something, and in one particular var, what they do is generally what their style of writing is, they'll kind of have a var where all of the lines they'll talk about what's false and they'll sign off what's true at the end. Generally, that's their writing style. And they talk about, so we might have heard of like Heer Ranja, kind of like the tell me about it. Tell me. Yeah, he did. The Romeo and Juliet kind of stories of the eastern parts of the world. And Bhai Gurdas Ji, in one line, references each story. So they reference the story of Leela and Majnu, and what's an old Arabic story in the 7th century. And it's there's a guy called Qais who becomes obsessed with a woman called Leela, and he becomes so obsessed he starts writing poetry about her. And because he was so obsessed, the locals started calling him Majnu, which basically means someone that's possessed by the jinn, right? By a different kind of being, because he was so possessed with her. And Bhai Gurdas Ji references this in their var, that as the love of Leela and Majnu was known across the world, then they reference someone called Surat and Bija. Bija was a just king, and he was a just king, and he was very much obsessed with music, and a musician came to him and kind of enticed him for a long period of time. Because he was such a fair person, the musician asked, "I've done all this for you, what are you going to give me?" And the king, being someone who's true to his word, he said anything. And the musician said, "I want your head off." And he cut his head off. And then after hearing that, his wife Surat, decided to kill herself because she couldn't be without her husband and her king. Then Bhai Gurdas Ji references Sassi and Pannu. Pannu was a prince and Sassi was someone who used to wash clothes for a living. And again, it's that classic love story where they don't let it happen, but they actually both end up dying together, right? And after mentioning kind of all of these love stories, Mehiwal and Sohani, Ranja and Heer, Bhai Gurdas Ji signs off with something beautiful. They say, Peer Murida Pirhadi, Gavan Prabhati. That all of these love stories, whilst they have their merits, Peer Murida Pirhadi, that the love between a disciple and a guru is higher than all of them. And the reason it's higher than all of them, Gavan Prabhati, is because it's joined by something special. It's joined by something called Naam. And sometimes we might think, oh, well, these are just stories. And these stories have merit. And the reason they have merit is because they replicate, or that feeling and that emotion has been replicated in Gur Itihas. So out of these kind of stories, we get about good 3 key themes. So theme number 1, sacrifice. In every single one of these, someone's died. It's always turned into a bloody ending, right?
Like Romeo and Juliet.
Someone gets sacrificed. And then, obviously, we know Sikhi is full of sacrifice. And sacrifice out of love. And people might have seen the picture of Bhai Mani Singh when they go to the Gurdwara and they see in the Langar Hall. Bhai Mani Singh Ji is the Sikh leader after Guru Gobind Singh Ji's time. He was a Sikh of Guru Gobind Singh Ji and he was cut limb by limb. And Bhai Mani Singh Ji's kind of last words, or before they were made Shaheed, there's kind of a famous saying that they have. And Bhai Mani Singh Ji says, Tan gandki ki kothadi, har hireya ki jaan. Okay, the body is basically a vessel of dirt and God is a treasure chest. So, and then the next line is, Je tan ditya har mila, so pi sasta jaan. That if trading off this dirt, trading off this gandhi vessel, right, and getting hirya in return is actually sasti jaan. It's a good deal. And that's the kind of love through sacrifice. And we know Sikhi is full of sacrifice. And we know the story of Bhai Mati Das Ji. Bhai Mati Das Ji, when they were going to be made Shaheed with Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, when Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji was imprisoned, their kind of last request was to face the Guru. And this is how important Bani is. On one side, Bhai Mati Das, there's a saw on Bhai Mati Das Ji's head, which is splitting their scalp. There's the crunch of their scalp on one side, and dusre passe, Bhai Mati Das Ji started Japji Sahib. His scalp is being sawn into, and Bhai Mati Das Ji is reciting Nanak Bhagta Sada Vigas Sunay Dukh Paap Ka Nas. And that's living it. We do the Nampa you said about Netanim and why we do Netanim. We do it every day because we live it. And Bhai Mati Das Ji became that. Sunay Dukh Paap Ka Nas.
Give us a translation.
That pain, listening, that pain went away. Listening to the words of Vaheguru, and because he lived those words, these kind of physical themes, physical pains didn't threaten him. So that's one, sacrifice, and we see that sacrifice, and maybe we'll go into the story of Satwan Singh Ji later. The second one is longing to meet. So all of these stories, at some point they've been separated, and they want to meet again, and there's this kind of feeling of we want to meet again. And
absence makes the heart grow fonder.
That heart, I think, and
Senti vibes carrying on from yesterday.
And there's a great story of Guru Arjan Dev Ji when their father Guru Ram Das Ji sends Guru Arjan Dev Ji to attend a function. Guru Arjan Dev Ji writes 3 letters, and they all kind of Mera man locha Guru Darsanatai, that I'm longing to meet the Guru. And their brother, Guru Arjan Dev Ji's brother, Priti Chand, who didn't want Guru Sahib to become the Guru, actually hid those letters. And there's 3 letters. Priti Chand hides all 3 of them, and then Guru Ram Das Ji sees the third one. And when Guru Arjan Dev Ji is called back, because Priti Chand was jealous of Guru Arjan Dev Ji, Guru Ram Das Ji Maharaj said that if you think you're the next in line to be the Guru, why don't you do the 4th one? And where he couldn't do it, where Baba Mahadev Ji couldn't do it, the other brother, Guru Arjan Dev Ji, instructed by their father, and Guru Arjan Dev Ji wrote, Bhag hua, Gursant Milaya, that finally that I've met you. And then they close off that verse, and it was actually after that verse they became the 5th Guru of the Sikhs. So sacrifice, longing to meet. And the third one, we've talked a lot about the Sikh and the Guru and the love that way round, but also, in all of these stories, one person was somewhat imperfect, as in they weren't compatible, and someone was of a low caste, so that they couldn't actually be together. And we've talked a lot about the Sikh and the Guru, but the other way around, the Guru and the Sikh. So the Guru is perfect, and we're the sinner. Ham papi, tum paap khandan. That we're the sinners, and you are the eradicator of sin. And despite us being such hard sinners and God being completely without sin, Guru Sahib still merges the Sikh with the Guru, and I think that's unconditional love. Augan kona chitarda gal seti like that. Vaheguru Paramatma doesn't look at you Augan, instead they meet you, embrace gal seti like they hug you. And I think these themes come out of these stories, and that's why they're mentioned, and that's why the history, kind of Sanatana history or kind of other cultural history is mentioned in Bhai Gurudas Ji's Vara and in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And I think we should be at that point, I think we should really be lucky to have these kind of sources in our Bani and in our kind of history, because people don't have this. It's very one-dimensional, and Gurbani is such rich. Like, for example, we've just talked about Muhabbat, Ishq, Prem, Pyar. Guru Sahib goes into multiple languages to mean the same thing.
You got me, bro. You got me.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it was very good in terms of the link that Gurbani has across the board. It is all encompassing. When Gurbani says that it is an update for everyone, it literally is for everyone, and that's why Guru Sahib Ji has brought in so many different things from different places.
So, just to stop you there in your tracks. So what Baji here said was, he said something very powerful. What he said was, he said, Guruji will love us even though we have our imperfections. And we've covered, just say another commercial day, which is Father's Day, how you can feel that void of that love, if you how you can feel that. And what for you, Baji Taj, what would you say actually describes the love of Guru or Waheguru for us, and us meaning any Sikh on any kind of level?
I mean, ultimately, if you were to ask me what is love between a Gursikh and their Guru, or the Sevak and the Guru, is what comes to my mind is Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji, who obviously comes to the Darbar of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji by Lerna. And Lerna means that you've come to get something. And what did they get? They got the sanctuary of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and through serving Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, by Lerna Ji becomes Angad. Angad meaning the limb. And that is that true love, because they became part of the Guru. And ultimately, that's the love that we should have. So they became part of the Guru. And then when Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji, they got given Gurta Gaddi while Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji was physically still on this earth. Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji gets sent to Khadur Sahib to do prachar. And when Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji gets told that Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Sarir Torte has left this world, Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji for me encompasses that whole relationship of what is the love between a true Gursikh.
So this is said, what you're about to say is said when Guru Nanak Dev Ji in his physical body form
left the world, and Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji says it, and it's Mahalla Duja, Jis pyare se neho, this aage mar chaliye, trig jeevan sansar, taake pache jeevana, that we should have. So Baji there talked about a longing. There's always a longing, and having a longing to meet with the thing that you have love for is one of the 9 nishaniya, the 9 signs of actually having prem. And Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji says, Jis pyare se neho, that person, that pyara, that lover that you have, that you love, this aage mar chaliye, your relationship should be to the point that you will die for them. Yeah, die in front of them, die for them. And linking to all of our shaheeds, Baji talked about different shaheeds there. That's what they achieved, that status, that for Guru Sahib they would sacrifice themselves. We talked earlier about attachment, all of that actually prem is getting rid of your homme, getting rid of your man, getting rid of your homme. And then in the next Bhakti, Guru Sahib says, Trig jeevan sansar, taake pache jeevana, that actually you have so much love for the Guru that without the Guru you don't actually want to live. Trig jeevan sansar, that it's all a waste. Taake pache jeevana, that without Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji saying that my living is not worthy of anything.
And like going back to my question of Guru's love for the Sikh or for the Seva, because the story you gave there was a powerful story, and it was of when you're saying Guru Angad Dev Ji, the second Guru, they served Guru Nanak Dev Ji, so they built that love through serving. So even if we don't understand, and even if we can't connect, just through service, just through that seva, we can, Guru will love us.
Yeah.
And
I mean, just on that, it's like, if I were to ask you, like, how with anyone that you've got a worldly loving relationship with, that must have developed over time, mustn't it? You didn't say the love that you have for anyone, especially friendship love. Let's say friendship love's a good one to use as an example, because you wouldn't normally just say you've got unconditional love because it's your friend. Over time, you will develop that brotherly love with a friend, and you become, like you tight like brothers. And that'll be over time because you spend time with them. You get to understand them. You get to know them. And when we question how do we build that relationship with Guru Sahib, earlier on I said that it's so difficult because God is seen as this abstract thing that's nirgun, that the Punjabi word we use that is formless. But actually Guru Sahib Ji is also sargun. They have a form on this world, and that's Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So you know what? If you're struggling to build that relationship with Guru Sahib, you know what I would say your first step literally needs to be is go and see Guru Sahib every day. If you want to build a loving relationship with a friend, you will meet that friend as much. Like literally, how much do I come down to Coventry just to see you lot because I've got that love and we just want to chill and probably do nothing really. But you know what I mean? You just link up with the person, don't you? You've got to see them to build that relationship. You have to go and see Guru Sahib to build that relationship, and then serve them as you said, and that can be done. Simple thing. You go Gurdwara Sahib, you go Matha Tek, sit in the darbar 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes in a day is not much. Yeah. Then on your way out, there's 2 dishes to wash in the langar hall. Just think that's my guru's Gursikh has just ate out of them. I'll wash those 2 towels. I'm off home. That is building that relationship, and the pyar will slowly come. And Guru Sahib also describes it as just lagi peer param ki so jane jariya. That person who then develops that love, only they truly know what that means. But we've got to put in the effort to start off that relationship.
Definitely, and that comes for, like we said, any relationship, whether it's in, your marriage or with your parents or with your children, what you're saying there is putting in the effort, and then without doubt it goes, same rule applies for your Sikhi and your Guru. You really took us really in a deep understanding of Gurbani today, and there might be some listeners who are probably thinking this was a little bit too deep for me, but last week we were talking more about someone's journey into Sikhi. This week we've talked a lot about Gurbani, and we've gone very deep and using other sources as well. So what we're going to try and cater for everyone, try our best that every week someone takes something away, everyone, all the listeners, and we can appreciate some people might have found it a little bit difficult this week, who are just getting into getting on the path, so to speak, whereas people who were listening last week, this week they might find it a little bit more beneficial because there's a lot more reference to Gurbani and building that love with the Guru. So I think while we've got you on the show here, Taj, what we could probably do is we put out some questions on Instagram this week, interacting with some of the followers. So if we just go, we're trying to wrap it up quick. So if we just go for about 2 questions.
No problem.
Baji, social media, Baji, if you can just tell us some of the questions that were asked, and our guest speaker today can try answering them.
No problem.
There was a question based on what's the difference between lust and love.
Okay, so ultimately lust is a longing for something, so it's got a bit of what we've talked about love, because there is a crossover between the characteristics. Again, it's difficult because what we're restricted to when we're talking about these things is language, and language has its restrictions in itself of what anything can mean. But lust is the longing of another's body. It's a physical relationship. Love is more than that, because love develops deeper than the physical. It is ultimately, let's say marriage. In Sikhi, marriage isn't just a physical relationship. It goes beyond that. It's about the 2 souls becoming one. So love ultimately in Sikhi is deeper than anything that is kind of that is served by the 5 senses, by physical things. Yeah, lust stays at physical level. Love goes deeper. That goes to the atmak, a soul level, your soul connecting with God, your soul connecting with other Gursikhs as well. There's lots in Gurbani about connecting with other Gursikhs, with the Sangat. So lust is physical, and love goes beyond the physical, beyond the empirical.
That that was a lot of detail to take away in that answer. Do we get any more questions?
Another one that came up was, what is Sikhi's stance on divorce?
Ooh,
obviously divorce, I mean, it's that kind of, it's a very tough kind of topic, because it comes down to the individual and that individual situation. I don't feel I'm in a position, Pardy, to sit here and judge and make those judgments. Ultimately, you should, if you've done lama with that person, you, like we said, it's beyond the physical. It's that actual soul becoming one. And if we just step back a little bit, I'm probably running from the question a bit, but I hope no one minds that. I'm gonna flip the question. Obviously, a divorce comes at a point where things have gone too far, and people need to try and work that out. But how do we stop ourselves from getting to that? What does Sikhi actually say a marriage is? So that we've talked a lot about relationships. So what's a marriage for? What's the purpose of it? Ultimately, you could say, yeah, it's because you need to have children. The band needs to without all that. That's all the worldly level. But actually, marriage is a fortress helping us fight the band's jor. So when we get married, you got a surma out in the battlefield, yeah. Like some of the Bajis here who aren't married, you get me? And they're out in the battlefield, but they're fighting by themselves at the moment against the Banjor, against the Five Thieves, against lust. We talked about lust and love in the crossover. They're out there fighting by themselves.
Attachment.
Yeah, attachment, all of those different things, yeah? Greed and all of that. But when someone gets married, ultimately we all know that lust is very, very difficult to overcome. And, your mind can just waver within a second. Yeah, at a sight, at a smell, on different things. So when you get married, what you're doing is you're giving yourself a protection of a killer, and then you're at that. But then at the same time, what is that marriage? That marriage is to help you become one with God. And Gurbani says, "Tan per ehn aakhien behan ikatthe hoye, ek jot doi murti tan per kahiye soye." That what relationship, what couple does Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji say are worthy of saying, yeah, that is a great couple, great marriage. That just because two people get married and they sit together and they're married and everyone's like, yeah, they're married, they're not done. That the two people, yeah, so you got two murtiyan, two bodies, they become one soul. Now, how do you become one soul?
Is this what's on every single wedding card for the last 20 years? But
it
no
is.
one
Stop
actually
printing Gurbani on your wedding cards,
especially that bank thing.
Yeah. So, but then what that actually means is so again, when we're talking about love, even when we translate Gurbani, sometimes we translate it in this very wishy-washy, worldly love way. But actually, the two people's souls don't become one in themselves, and then those two become one. How do you become one soul? There's only one way becoming one soul.
So it's not like Spice Girls 2 become one.
No. So you've got the one. There is the one Atma, which is called Paramatma. Paramatma is God, yeah? So he is the Paramatma, the greatest Atma, the greatest soul. And those two people in a marriage have an Atma each. How do those two souls, the Atmas, become one? They have to reach Paramatma. So you've got to reach God, and you do that because you put Sikhi at the front of everything. If the love of the Guru and our history, we've said little bits, Baji said bits on history, that if we look to our history, we will find out how to have a loving husband and wife relationship. If we look to our history, we will find out how to respect our parents. If we look to our history, we will find out how to build a relationship with Guru Sahib. And when I was first coming into Sikhi, a Gursik, someone that I really respect, that helped me on my path when I first started coming into Sikhi, he gave me one teaching. He's a Singh, he's from India, and he said, I'll tell you one thing. If you want Sikhi, you must listen to your history each day, he said. I've never done it, I'm not going to lie. I've not done it daily. I've listened to a bit here and there. But he had said, each day you need to listen to Sakhiyan from our history, because even Gurbani says, Sun Sakhi man jap pyar. By listening to the stories of the Gursikhs, of the Gurus, you automatically get love, because our virsa, our history is so great. There's no one in this world that can listen to our history and not have love for Guru Sahib. Even if you talk to people who are not Sikhs, being an RE teacher, I talk to lots of interfaith, lots of different things. Anyone who knows about Sikhi, the amount of RE teachers that are atheists or other religions, and you know what they say to me when we have like meetings with other schools and stuff, like, oh, if there was one religion I could pick, if it wasn't my religion, or if I wasn't an atheist, or if I didn't like going out on a Friday night and getting whatever, yeah, it would be Sikh. And you know what they always say, Baji? The word that they always use is it's a religion full of love. And our history is absolutely soaked in that love.
I think
so we need to listen to our history.
To put that into context is, so what you're saying is by reading Sikh history, it builds your love for Sikhs and for the Guru, because you hear of their greatness. The same, if you're a parent and you go parents' evening and the teacher says that your child is amazing and your child done X, Y, Z, and he says great things about your child, same thing about your wife, same thing about your parents, it fills you with love for that person. Definitely. By hearing stories of something good that they've done.
And ultimately, and you get that love, and you know why it's important, because the parent will build that relationship with the child, but ultimately, what is love? My last thing, I might pop back in again. I know I spoke quite a lot today. Sorry to the rest of the lads. But my last thing that I'd like to say is, what is ultimately love? If my description for you of love before I sign off, is love is the key to the door of God's house. And it opens the door to God. Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji in Dwaya Prasad Swayye every day, they talk about all these worldly things that people do, all these karam kand, which is like ritualistic things that we do in this world, people do in this world to build that relationship with God. But ultimately, Guru Sahib in one pankti finishes off the whole debate of love. Jin prem kiyo, tin hi prab payo. That person who has developed prem with Guru Sahib, they have become one with God. And prem is the key to God, or the door of God's house.
That's the essence right there.
So we're gonna finish this week off with, you know, a true love story. We've heard multiple love stories that have been referenced. We've heard multiple forms of love, but for the theme of this week, I want to finish on a love story that I've heard and has stuck with me. And in today's day and age, it's unheard of, and it's something relatable because it wasn't even that long ago in history, and it ticks so many boxes in the spectrum of love. And Baji, can you just give us that story?
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't take anything else away, take away the story of Satwan Singh and Byan Singh and the love of Bibi Surinder Kaur. I'm sure we're going to have many podcasts on Khalistan movement and 1984 to follow, but I just want to talk about Satwan Singh and Bibi Surinder Kaur. So after Indira Gandhi invades Sachkhand Sri Harmandir Sahib and Sikhs very fearlessly fight against her, on the 31st of October 1984, Satwan Singh and Byan Singh, her two Sikh bodyguards, decide to turn the gun on her. And they turn the gun on her because after they've gone to Akal Takht Sahib, they've seen the damage that she's caused, and they've hatched this plan. And after hatching this plan, it's important to say, Byan Singh was married and had a family, and Satwan Singh was engaged. So on that morning, on the morning of the 31st, they have made the plan, and that's the day that they're going to actually assassinate Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India. And the story is, Indira Gandhi is walking out for her usual walk, and Satwan Singh is the first one to turn the gun on her. After he shoots, Indira Gandhi looks at him and says, "Satwan, ye kya?" And Byan Singh ji replies, "Amritsar ka badla." That's the end of Indira Gandhi. She's killed there on the spot. The Sikhs, knowing that what would happen next and how this will play out, they put down their guns, and they tell the kind of other guards, "We've done what we were supposed to do. Now you guys do what you want to do." And they're taken into kind of interrogation. And in the interrogation, and we've talked a lot about love, I'm going to talk about love between two Sikhs that aren't biologically related, with Satwan Singh and Byan Singh, huh? But there's something that relates all of us, and that's the love of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. That's it. And Satwan Singh is kind of mocked by some of the other guards, and they've said that they've kind of beaten him up a little bit. Byan Singh can't take this, and a scuffle breaks out in which Satwan Singh pulls one of the guards' guns to fire on him. And seeing this, the other guards get really agitated, so they fire first. And Byan Singh, seeing that the younger Satwan Singh is going to be shot at, decides to shield Satwan Singh and actually becomes shaheed on the spot. One bullet hits Satwan Singh, it's in his spine. Satwan Singh, Inna Yoda, say that even when he went to prison later, they left that bullet in, and he took it out himself. He took it out himself in the prison cell. That's the kind of the fight in by Satwan Singh. Byan Singh is made shaheed on the spot. Satwan Singh is kind of pending trial along with Kher Singh, and his engagement had really happened to Bibi Surinder Kaur. And Surinder Kaur wanted to go and meet her fiancé Satwan Singh, who's basically on death row. They've been sentenced to death, and the jail don't allow it, and the authorities don't allow it because they're not married. So knowing that this would happen, they needed something solid to say that we are married, or we have our relationship is recognized officially. And lots of people, lots of government authorities, lots of local police officers were turning it down, saying this is nothing we can do. It falls on the lap of the Panth, of the usual people that have supported the Panth from the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and they take it to Sri Akal Takht Sahib. After taking it to Akal Takht Sahib, Bibi Surinder Kaur says, this is, I want to basically still be with Satwan Singh. I've accepted him as my husband, even though he's on death row and he's going to be made shaheed. And I want to be the wife of a shaheed. That's my love. I want to be married to somebody who's a shaheed. And the family of Satwan Singh and kind of the elders at the time, the Jathedars at the time, had kind of advised Surinder Singh to take up this offer, or take up this condition of, why don't you just live in the house of Satwan Singh but get married to his brother who's unmarried, you can still be part of the family, and that way you won't be on your own. They're very young at the time. You won't be on your own for the rest of your life. Surinder Kaur declines, even at Akal Takht Sahib, and they cite a precedent, and I think this is why Itihas is very important, is because Itihas sets precedent for what's to be done in the future. And Surinder Kaur talks about the story of Nihang Khan, and the story of that is, then I'll conclude this, is when Bhai Bachittar Singh, we know the famous Bhai Bachittar Singh, who took out the elephant that was coming towards the Sikhs, when Bhai Bachittar Singh became injured, Guru Gobind Singh Ji was told him to go to a house of a Muslim who had a lot of love for Guru Gobind Singh Ji. His name was Nihang Khan. And Nihang Khan houses Bhai Bachittar Singh. The Mughals are hot on the trail, and they're raiding all the houses, looking for particularly Bhai Bachittar Singh. And in his house, Nihang Khan's house, is his daughter called Mumtaz. And Nihang Khan says, stay in a room with the daughter, Mumtaz, and I'll tell the Mughals you're not here. The Mughals weren't having it. So they were like, no, we want to search your house. They searched his house, and there's one room left, the room that they were in. And Mumtaz was doing his bandages, his patti. And the Mughals say, no, we're going to search that room. Who's in there? And Nihang Khan, at that time, suddenly said, that's my daughter and my son-in-law. That Opaya, don't go in that room. Then the Mughals obliged and said, okay, that's fine, we won't go in there. Bachittar Singh later becomes shaheed. He's unable to physically recover from those wounds. And Mumtaz, later on in her life, when she's told, why don't you get married now, you're at an age where you should get married now, says to her father that you said that I was like the wife of Bhai Bachittar Singh, and from that day I had accepted from your words that that's my Javai and that's my daughter, that I had accepted that Bhai Bachittar Singh was my husband, and again Manumania to be the wife of a Shaheed Singh of the caliber of Bhai Bachittar Singh, and she stayed her whole life unmarried, serving the Panth as that. Bibi Surinder Kaur cites this precedence. The then Jathedar of Akal Takht Sahib agrees, and in 1988.
So based on that story, so she went to Akal Takht, she was summoned to try and fight her corner to be the wife of Bhai Satwan Singh. So she recites that bit of history, and based upon that,
1988, Bibi Surinder Kaur does an Anand Karaj holding the photo of Satwan Singh, and that's 1988. And in 1989, in January, Bhai Satwan Singh.
So if you break that down more, she does a wedding
with a photo, holding a photo for the first time in Sikh history.
Wow. So she does her forelama holding the photo of her fiancé.
Of her fiancé, Bhai Satwan Singh, who and this is I think May 1988. So literally 6 months later, Bhai Satwan Singh is made shaheed. She gets to see him once. And then that's his shaheedi. That's the end of it.
Wow. There's not much else to say after that. That has literally summed everything up. The word love is thrown around so cheaply nowadays, and that is true love. That is true love from our own history, from nowhere else, from our own history. So just like to take this opportunity again, if you haven't given us a follow on our various platforms, please do. Like I said earlier on in the show, we covered some things today that people may have found it difficult to relate to. Same with last week, but every week, if you stay tuned week by week, and you'll grow with us, and you'll understand and you'll enjoy it more. Again, just reiterating the fact that we are new to this, so we are trying and we will get better. I'd like to thank today's guests, Tejinder Singh, and all of the team that are with us today. And once again, give us all a follow, and please guys, just give us as much support as you can. Big thank you from all of us. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.